Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing good. This is Wanda Dubey. So in this video, as it's already displayed, that we are gonna start with React. So without wasting any further time, let's move to the official React documentation and learn about describing the UI. So let's talk about the UI and the entire UI lifecycle. React.js is a JavaScript library for rendering user interfaces. UI is built from small units like components, like button, text, and images. React lets you combine them into reusable, nestable components. The component is like the most important part and the heart and soul of a React project. We're gonna look more into how to create our components and how to create multiple components and establish relationship between them in the further part of this lecture. From websites to phone apps, everything on the screen can be broken down into components. In this chapter, you will learn to create customization and conditionally display React components. Now, I'll open up the notes panel as well because we'll be creating notes side by side. Perfect. So our note space is ready, and now we can move forward to study about our first component. React components are one of the core concepts of the React. They are the foundation upon which you build your user interfaces or UI as code, which makes them the perfect place to start your React journey. In this chapter, you'll learn about what a component is, what role components play in React application, and how to write your first React component. Components or UI building blocks. So first of all, let me just write the heading, that is your first component. So I'll copy this as well. So on the web HTML let us create rich structured documents with its built-in set of tags like h1 and li. So this is technically a very simple HTML tag. If I were to show you how we can run this, then let me just open Stagbliss as well. And we'll be using a React template. Also, for simplicity, I'm going to be opening an HTML tag, simple HTML static website. Inside this, if I just copy and paste this simple article, just copy paste it, I'll just put it over in the body. So this is technically how this would look like. The markup represents this article or the article tag, its heading h1, the h1 tag, and abbreviated table of contents as an ordered list OL. That's the OL tag. Markup like this, combined with the CSS for style and JavaScript for interactivity, lies behind every sidebar, avatar, model, drop-down, every piece of UI you see on the web. React lets you combine on markup, CSS, and JavaScript into custom components. Components, once again, the heart and soul of React. Everything can be a component in React, and components are those reusable parts of the entire web page or the web page structure which can be reused to make more components and or can be reused. Components, reusable UI elements for your app. The table of contents code you saw above could be turned into a custom HTML tag, or you can call table of contents. The component you render on every page under the hood, it still uses the same HTML tags like article h1, etc. Just like with HTML tags, you can compose, order, and nested components to design whole web pages. For example, the documentation page you are reading is made up of React components. So this entire page layout, inside the page layout we have the navigation header, we have the search bar available, a link to docs, then after that this is closed. Inside the sidebar we have page content, table of contents, documentation on the text. So as your project grows, you will notice that many of your designs can be consumed by reusing components that you already wrote, speeding up your development procedure. A table of contents above could be added to any screen with table of contents. You can even jumpstart your project with thousands of components shared by React open source community like Chakra UI and Material UI. And we'll just check out these websites as well. So this is technically Chakra UI. And as you can see that this is a custom HTML React component. Also, there's Material UI as well. I would also like to copy this line to the note section. Now let's talk about defining a component. The H2, I'll just write. Perfect. Traditionally, when we are creating web pages, web developers mark up their content and then add interaction by sprinkling on some JavaScript. This worked great when the interaction was a nice to have on web. Now it is expected for many sites and all apps. React puts interactivity first while still using the same technology. A React component is a JavaScript function that you sprinkle with some markup. And this is also a great line which adds a bit of sarcasticity to your answer. If someone asks you in your interview that what is React, you can say React component is a JavaScript function that you sprinkle with some markup. Here's what it looks like when you can edit the example below. Export default function. Export is a functionality given by JavaScript where we can basically distribute our code to multiple files, and then we can import those files and export those files. So it can be accessible throughout the entire folder structure. In this example, you can see export default function profile, return, image, src, and this is a simple JavaScript function which returns a simple image tag, and it displays over here. If you want me, I can show you in the React project as well. We'll go to src. We'll create a new component folder. Inside this component folder, I'll maybe have profile.jsx. Inside the profile.jsx, I'll have export default function profile, and I'll simply return. Inside the return, there will be curly braces. Inside that, I'll return an img tag. The src, I'll just copy this image and source. Perfect. Now, once again, moving back to app.js, what we'll do is inside this div, or not div, I'll just import profile from components, then PROFI profile. We use profile. There's an import error. I'll just cut paste and I guess I am not used to not very familiar with these tag lists, but maybe yep. All right. So if you're using the things things change a little bit when you're using an online editor. Otherwise, if you are using VS Code, then you don't need to import React every time when you're doing this. All of this might seem a little bit over the board for you right now, but once you get the hang of what components really are, you will easily be able to basically walk through it. Now, just to explain you, like if we are using pure HTML and CSS over here, let's say I'll just delete this entire thing. And now what I'll really do is I'll just copy and paste this entire HTML tag inside this. See, now it works completely same. The image is basically displayed over here. Also the image is displayed over here. But now what if I want to create, I want to use this image once again? I'll once again have to write the image tag once again. If I want to display this once again, I'll have to redefine the entire image tag with the entire attribute structure. And that is why the concept of React makes sense, because we have created a custom component profile.jsx. I'll explain you what JSX is in the further parts of the video. It's just a file format and way to write JavaScript. It's like an advanced form of JavaScript where we use HTML tags as well. So inside app.js, you don't have to worry about all this, that what is the entire folder structure right now. Inside app.js, we imported something which is known as React from React, imported the css.style, which is not necessary. Then we use the functionality. First of all, we created an entire component. The syntax of the component is export default function profile. I defined the name of the function and export default because this is the only function which we want to export right now. After that, I simply use the return, because each and every function in JavaScript returns something or another. After that, I defined image tag just like I did in HTML. It works there, it works here as well. And now after that, I imported this file to my app.js file as profile. And now inside the JavaScript, we use JSX syntax. So this is a custom HTML component provided to us. And now if I have to use this once again, I do not have to define the entire HTML tag or attributes and everything which I have defined over here. So this saves a lot of time. Since this is a very small project, you might not feel that that much of a difference, but in the bigger projects, the component approach makes a lot of sense. Now, let's go step by step on how to create a component. Step 1 is to export the component. What we did was, technically, first we created a file. The export default prefix is a standard JavaScript syntax, not specific to React, which I already told you. It lets you mark the main function in a file so that you can later import it from other files. More on the importing and exporting components. We'll be going forward in the further parts of this lecture. Step 2 is defining the function. With function profile and parentheses and curly braces, you define a JavaScript function within the name profile. Pitfall: React components are regular JavaScript functions, but their names must start with a capital letter or they will not work. So this is a naming convention which you have to follow by default, otherwise they won't work. As you can see, I have used in the component file, I named it profile.jsx with a capital P, and while importing as well, I used a capital P over here. So this is like a naming convention which you need to follow each and every time. In the third step, we'll be adding markup. The component returns an HTML tag, which is the image tag, with the source and alt attributes. The image tag is written like HTML but is actually JavaScript under the hood. The syntax is called the JSX syntax, and it lets you embed markup inside JavaScript. We'll be learning more about the writing markup with JSX. Return statements can be written all in one line, as in this component, like we wrote over here. But just for the sake of readability, we don't technically write in this way. But if your markup isn't all in the same line as a return keyword, you must wrap it within a pair of parentheses. If I would have been writing this in just one line, then this would have worked. If not, then definitely I would have to use these parentheses which I used before. Without parentheses, any code on the line after the return will be ignored. I'll be adding all this into the notes once the lecture ends. You can check the notes from the description below. Now, using a component. Now we have defined the component, imported React from React, exporting the file, export default, function, profile, parentheses, just normally like we define a function, and then after returning the image tag. Now you have defined profile function. You can nest it inside the components. For example, you can export a gallery component that uses multiple profile components. So there's a function profile. Now export default function gallery. So what we'll do is, let's say I'll define another component inside this, and we'll name it as gallery.jsx. Inside the gallery.jsx, I'll be import React from React. Then again, export default. We'll be using gallery, and we'll be writing the return function as we know it. I'll remove this for now. And now what we'll do is we'll import this profile from profile and what we'll do is we'll use a custom div inside this div. First of all, I'll have an h1 element and I'll say that amazing scientists. Perfect. Now I want the image of 3 scientists. I've already imported profile from the previous component. And yes, it is true that we can use another component while defining another component. So if we have already a pre-made component just like profile.jsx, we are defining another component. So we can reuse these components to create another component. So component is technically the fundamental building block of the entire React app. I can create a new component using the gallery and the profile. So that would be a component which is made from 2 subchildren components, that is gallery and profile. But here now just let's define the profile control V and control. Now you might think that why is this not displaying yet? So the main problem is that app folder is the main app.js is the main folder and everything starts executing from here. So for the technically for everything to display over here, first we need to call this attribute over here in the app.js export default function app. I'll be importing the gallery from component gallery and I'll be writing gallery like this. And see, now using 2 components, this is some different component and this is another whole component. We created a new component. Now another question might arise that why I encapsulated this with a div. So technically, just for now, you don't need to go in that depth, but remember that we can return only one element to the like in the JSX format. So here, if we count, we have 4 number of elements. We can have multiple number of elements inside a main element, but it is a convention that you should encapsulate it within one component. So as we see that we return just a single element over here. What the browser sees, notice the different in casing, section is in lowercase, and so React knows we refer to an HTML tag. Profile starts with a capital P, so React knows that we want to use our component called profile. And profile contains even more HTML. In the end, this is what browser sees. Section H1, amazing scientist. And image src, just like we do. Nesting and organizing components. Components are regular JavaScript functions, so you can keep multiple components in the same file. This is convenient when components are relatively small or tightly related to each other. If the file gets crowded, you can always move profile to a separate file. You will learn how to do shortly on the page about imports. But we already did that. As for every small component, we created a new component. Because profile components are rendered inside gallery even several times. We can say that gallery is a parent component, rendering each profile as a child component. This is part of the magic of React. You can define a component once and then use it in as many places as you may like. Common pitfall: components can render other components, but you must never nest their definition. Never define component inside another component. A small recap. You've just gotten the first taste of React. Let's recap some key points. React lets you create components, reusable UI elements for your app. In a React app, every suitable piece of UI is a component. React component are regular JavaScript functions. The name always begins with capital letters. They return JSX markup. Let's try out some of the challenges. Challenge 1. Export the component function. This sandbox does not work because the components because the root component is not exported. So we just use export default. And now it works. Fix the return statement. Something isn't right about the return statement. Can you fix it? So return statement can be fixed easily if we just move it to the same line. And hence it works because we just have only one element over here. Spot the mistake. Something's wrong with how the profile component is declared and used. Can you spot the mistake? Try to remember the React distinguish components from the regular HTML tags. See, the first mistake is that our custom function should be in capital letters. And now we have to modify each and every profile to make it work. And also profile tag is unrecognized. So we'll export default function. So there can be only one function available. So what we'll do is H1 Amazing Scientists. And now write a component from scratch. You can give it a valid name and return any markup. If you're out of ideas, you can write a congratulate component that shows hi, good job. Now export default and function congratulate, return, and I'll return an H1 saying that hello, welcome back to the channel. Perfect. Now created our own component. In the next lecture, we'll be learning about the importing and exporting of components and how can we maintain a file structure. Though I've already told you, but definitely for the sake of the lecture, we'll go through it once again. So that is it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye and have a great day.